The following presentation is part of the Beyond the Blast Doors network.
From the farthest reaches of the galaxy, the Midwest, you're watching Beyond the Blast Doors live.
We are back here on episode 80 of Beyond the Blast Doors, a technical difficulty that I don't have any guilt in admitting to, but we are back here on a Thursday night, episode 80. Thank you for staying with us, and if you're listening on the rewind, or maybe you're listening on the podcast form, I ratted myself out. You would have had no clue, but what happened was there was a big lightning strike in the area, and I think we lost power for a hot second, and then I couldn't get the live stream back on, but here we are back together. We just had a conversation about George Lucas. It was his birthday. We shouted out a lot of people's favorite memories about George Lucas, what we love about him. I talked about my moment, which I don't have to tell you about. We just had that conversation. So let's go ahead and dive into the next topic here for episode 80 Beyond the Blast Doors. And real quick, actually, let's go ahead and shout out Streaming Star Wars, Ammo, and Fletzer. We have a new show on Friday, 10 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Pacific. We're going to be talking about the evolution of the Clone Wars and our excitement that the series is ending and the potential that it has in the very near future, or maybe in the distant future. But nonetheless, really excited to talk about how it's not just changed itself, how the series has evolved, but our understanding of the saga, maybe how Ahsoka has become really one of the more important characters in the story, and her role and the role of other characters in the very near future. An expansion of the conversation that we've already had in this episode about all these new characters we might be seeing making their live action debut. Before we roll out of here on episode 80, want to just shout out everybody again in the live chat. We got Dale Erdman, we got Mr. Rez, we got Frammy. JLS Comics is with us, part 2. Part 2, because the live stream, it ended, and then we had to kind of cruise right back into it, but we figured things out. Glad to have everybody with us here on episode 80. 7 people watching. If you haven't already, be sure you give us a thumbs up. Be sure you comment down below. All right, fan questions. We're going to dive right into it here on a Thursday night. This comes from Mr. Daft Prawn, which a great supporter of the show, a great supporter of Beyond the Blast Doors network in general. Here's the question, and it's a thought that he shared with Canon Junkie, Jerry over there at the Bombad Cast. He goes, do you think Qui-Gon Jinn could have sensed his imminent demise during meditation in the moments before his final confrontation with Darth Maul? Could he have believed that his death was necessary to advance the prophecy? Love this question. Thank you so much for asking it here on Beyond the Blast Doors Live. It's quite possible. We see him in episode 1. You know, the screen, the laser, the door is closed. The hollow door, whatever you want to call it. He's there meditating. Darth Maul is pacing. We know what happens to Maul in a couple of minutes, right? And Qui-Gon is at peace. You see an anxious Obi-Wan Kenobi. You see a rage-filled Maul. And you're wondering to yourself, what is Qui-Gon meditating about? Is he just being one with the Force in that moment? Qui-Gon knew the Jedi were wrong. Like, we know this. Like, if you read Claudia Gray's Master and Apprentice, some storytelling in the comics, what we've learned about Qui-Gon even through the Clone Wars, right? We know that Qui-Gon disagreed fundamentally with the Jedi Order and the Council, specifically the direction the Council was leading the Jedi Order. He thought that Jedi were wrong to not emote. He felt that Jedi had become too political. And that's exacerbated in the prequel trilogy with the Jedi Order not becoming just political, but becoming warriors. A great moment here in the Clone Wars, wrapping up that saga, is Ahsoka talking to Rex on the bridge seconds before Order 66 is executed. She says, you know, my whole life, most of my life as a Jedi, I've been trained, to fight. It's not really the role of the Jedi. Okay, and Rex on the flip side, he's been bred from birth, programmed, designed to be a warrior on the battlefield. And it's a very interesting moment. That's a problem in Qui-Gon's eyes. Obviously, these events taking place after Qui-Gon's death, but he saw, for a lack of better phrasing, the writing on the wall that the Jedi were going in the wrong direction. He disagreed fundamentally with how the Jedi were involved politically, and Qui-Gon loved. Qui-Gon loved, and he felt that the Jedi were not one with the Force. There was flaws, there was imperfections, and there was an ignorance, really, that there was no care to redirect. The Jedi were not fulfilling their role, their true role in helping keep order in the galaxy. It would be interesting because I think about a conversation that Dave Filoni just had, a video that posted last week following the conclusion of the Clone Wars, and he's talking about the importance. Well, he talked about it in that video, but really he talks about it in the Disney Gallery, the behind-the-scenes featurette on The Mandalorian. He talks about the importance of the Duel of the Fates, where, yeah, it's a cool lightsaber battle, and yeah, it's maybe the greatest piece of Star Wars music to date, but what makes it so great is the fact that that is a battle for Anakin. It is a battle for his future. And it is mirroring what Anakin could become. He's going to become this Jedi, but he will fall. And the outcome of that battle is what sets Anakin on his ultimate path, right? For every action, there's a reaction. Every action has a consequence, right? I think it's really interesting. I think it's really interesting when you think about it that way. And Dave Filoni, how eloquently he put it, shows that there's all these other levels of what makes Star Wars so powerful. Qui-Gon knows that there is something special about Anakin, and the Jedi Order, the Council specifically, is possibly going to fail this boy. He is going to train this child. He is going to push Obi-Wan towards the trials. He believes that Obi-Wan, who is a do-gooder, who plays by the rules, is ready to take the trials on. Qui-Gon's death disrupts everything. Qui-Gon was supposed to train Anakin, not Obi-Wan Kenobi. Anakin needed a father figure. Qui-Gon was going to do that, keeping in mind, like 45 minutes earlier, Qui-Gon's like, I didn't show up here to free slaves. Okay, guy who wasn't perfect himself, right? Tact goes a long way. Really, Dr. Gav, I just think that's a great question, and I would like to speculate. Maybe he did see into the future. We know that the Force allows visions of the future. Luke on Dagobah with Yoda, seeing through the Force, his friend suffering in the clouds. Okay, so we've seen this, okay? We know that Star Wars rhymes. It's quite possible. But when you see how that sequence plays out, I don't know if Qui-Gon goes down because it was planned. It looks like the screen doors lift, he jumps up to action, ignites his saber, and he duels Maul, and Maul just beats him with a cheap move. I mean, and that's what it was. It's the same move that leads to Maul's demise at the end of Rebels. Sorry if you haven't seen that. It's been out for about 2 years. Really interesting. Really interesting question to ask. I would say no, that Qui-Gon had every intention of trying to beat this Sith, but he lost. Avenged by his apprentice, who did go on, as asked, and train the boy, who did become a Jedi Knight, maybe the most powerful Jedi of all time, who did fall to the dark side and ultimately was redeemed by his son. That is the story. That is the hero's journey that we explore in those 7 films. And into some regard, what we get to follow here in the sequel trilogy that we recently got over the last few years. Great question. Love that question. So great. Thank you for me for the Star Wars conversation here on this Thursday, episode 80. That was beautiful. Thank you so much for that. What is your top Star Wars music track? Ooh, very interesting. This might be a stunner because a lot of people ask, right? And it's a question that we all ask because there are so many iconic. There's the iconic, just the Imperial March. There's the fanfare that you get with the credits. You think of Duel of the Fates from that you think of from Phantom Menace. Man. I think that it'd be easier to pick like a favorite tune out of each trilogy. I think that would be the easier ask, but I think that's not the question that you were asking for. So I think that's valid. I really like, personally, if I'm being honest with you, I will say it's the Battle of the Heroes. I felt that Revenge of the Sith met my expectations, showed me Star Wars on a scale I never thought was possible. I thought that George took what he learned from Phantom Menace, learned from some mistakes in Attack of the Clones, and in 2005, I'm in middle school. Revenge of the Sith hits it, and that climactic Jedi duel. Well, the fallen Jedi between Master and Apprentice, the whole high ground thing, Battle of Heroes. That was also some of John Williams' finest work there. I think a lot of Star Wars fans will go to Duel of the Fates, but I mentioned like the fanfare, the Imperial March, the Fours. Leia's theme is beautiful. I think that out of the sequel trilogy, my favorite piece of music is Kylo Ren's theme. Very beautiful, how it evolves over the 3 movies. I think is really touching as well. But I think that, Battle of the Heroes out of Revenge of the Sith is my favorite John Williams Star Wars music. Not the most iconic. That wasn't the question. Not the most pivotal piece of music. That wasn't the question. The most popular piece of music. That wasn't the question. The question was, what is my favorite piece of Star Wars music? And I will go with Battle of the Heroes, Revenge of the Sith. John Williams, you are a master. Give me honestly, I'm glad that was the question. Let's go back to that real quick. So, music track, an acceptable answer, I think you could pick something out of, someone could easily say, Michael Giacchino from Rogue One. You could tell me that maybe Kevin Kiner has done something with Star Wars Rebels or Clone Wars that really excites you as a fan. That's totally valid, too. Totally valid. Would endorse, would support that plenty. Okay, hey, one last question here on Beyond the Blast Doors, episode 80. This is from Rick Villanueva joining us here. I probably won't be able to make the live show, early work in the morning. Hey, I appreciate it still nonetheless, Rick. Throwing out a question. What do you think if things had gone differently? Would Ahsoka have rejoined the Jedi Order? Yeah, if the Jedi don't get wiped out in Order 66, I think that's a really good, solid idea that Ahsoka would come back. If she's able to bring back Maul to the Jedi and they are able to uncover the plan and they're able to spoil the Emperor, although Maul and I think us as fans are supposed to understand that it's too late. The Jedi failed decades ago. The moment that Anakin was found, and you can go to that moment when Palpatine says, we will follow your future with much anticipation, I believe is the quote. That might be the moment. The Jedi failed then. Because the manipulation started then. The relationship started forming then between Anakin and Palpatine. The Emperor was looking for his true apprentice, his true heir apparent. And Maul fails. And obviously we know in that moment that Palpy knew about Maul's failure. Dooku fails, right? The ignorance, a popular word used now thanks to The Last Jedi, hubris, the hubris of the Jedi. Very fascinating question. With all those things that I mentioned, if the Emperor could be foiled, if Ahsoka is able to bring back Maul, that story is told completely differently. Obviously, the story isn't told differently because we're kind of in media res here. We know what happens in the future. That story's already been told. It'd be interesting if we got this story 30, 40 years ago. We're like, oh, well, what could have happened? But we know what had to have happened, or better yet, something had to have happened that would not retcon what stories have already been told. But I think it's a very interesting question, and I think there's a couple of moments. The whole exchange between Ahsoka and Obi-Wan, tell Anakin, I'll let him know. What was that all about? We still are trying to figure that out. But I think that Ahsoka might have come back. But at the same time, the unwillingness to help the Mandalorians at the beginning of the arc, the fall of Anakin, the fall of the Republic, the extinction of the Jedi, there's just no way for Ahsoka to come back. But those events play out differently. Maul doesn't run like a coward and then end up going and running Crimson Dawn for the next 15 years. I think Ahsoka comes back. Wow. What a great night. Episode 80, Beyond the Blast Doors. Thanks for making it special. Real quick before we get out of here, I just want to say a big old shout out to our proud Patreon supporters. But this is something that we do. I want to do it just for a couple of seconds. Real quick, just shout out. Big thanks to everyone who supports us on the Patreon. And this is where we continue our Star Wars conversation. And this is something that allows us kind of break even. Just lets us continue this hobby of ours and having a lot of fun, a lot of new members in our Patreon community. And I just want to say this. If you like what you've watched tonight, if you like what you heard, maybe I need to buy a better internet modem, or maybe I need to buy a new power strip now to protect myself against severe weather. But if you enjoy the Star Wars conversation, consider supporting Beyond the Blast Doors on Patreon. Exclusive content, giveaways. We interact with you. You get to interact with your favorite BTBD personalities. Right now, we're trying to schedule our first Patreon live stream where we're all going to jump on. And as many of us from the network will jump on and do a stream with our Patreon supporters. And right now, you can join at a variety of levels, as you can see here on your screen. The $5 director level, the Grand Admiral level, Admiral. We spelled Admiral wrong. That's funny. I just noticed that. Grand Moff level at $18. We also have the Sith Lord tier at $30 per month. And for $50 per month, you can support the network. $50 per month. But we break that down per show. So if you were to donate at the $50 level, that's $8 per show. I'll shout out the Grand Moff tier. So at $18 a month, you're actually supporting each individual show, $3 per show. So that's $3 to be on BTBD Live, $3 per Around the Galaxy, Holo Chronicles postcards from the Galaxy's Edge, Bombad Cast. So in a month, yeah, we'll give you 3 to 4 episodes a month, but supporting us at that $18 tier allows you to support each of the creators, each of these individual shows at the $3 level. So I just want to try and be clear about that. Of course, maybe you can't support us at the $18 level and you can only support us at the $5 level. It's not only, that's still a huge help, and we appreciate that. And maybe you can't or just don't want to join us on Patreon. That's absolutely fine. We're just so glad that you're able to join us maybe on the live shows, or you listen on the podcast stream. You interact with us on social media. It's all part of the Star Wars conversation, and we are so glad to be having it with you. Thank you so much for your patience on this Thursday, May 14th, 2020. It's a hell of a year. It's a hell of a year, and we're still getting so much Star Wars goodness. It keeps us going, right? It's a wild time to be alive right now. Still so many stuck at home, maybe working from home. Maybe you're looking for a new gig. I can kind of check off all those boxes there. But so glad you're with us. As a reminder, you can always catch us live on, hit the graphic too early. There we go. You can always catch us live on YouTube, unless when the power goes out, but you can always listen. iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, SoundCloud. I mentioned Patreon. Follow us there. But yes, this week, Boba Fett, Sabine, Bo-Katan, Rex, Ahsoka, they might all be in The Mandalorian, or they may not. Catch our next Star Wars conversation. This is going to be on Friday in less than 24 hours, streaming Star Wars, Ammo and Fletcher, episode 23, the mythos, the legacy of the Clone Wars. We will talk about it. Now we'll roll the animation. Now we're getting out of here. This is the planned ending of the show. We appreciate it. We will see you soon. Thank you for making our Star Wars conversation special. May the Force be with you.
Thank you for watching Beyond the Blast Doors. Be sure to subscribe to our channel. Don't forget, give us a thumbs up and leave a comment. Beyond the Blast Doors, a Star Wars conversation.